Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be doing my Reading Rush wrap-up. I read 7 books for the week of the Reading Rush readathon. I completed all 7 challenges and I read over 2,000 pages. I also vlogged every day of the readathon, so if you haven't watched those, go watch them. So with that being said, let's get into the 7 books that I read this week. The first book I read for the Reading Rush was What I Thought Was True by Huntley Fitzpatrick. This completed the challenge to read a book with purple on the cover. I was excited reading this one because My Life Next Door by Huntley Fitzpatrick I gave 5 out of 5 stars, so I was hoping I would enjoy this one, but I hated it. I gave it 1 out of 5 stars. It was just so bad to me. Like, it made me so angry. I was literally heated reading it. So this book follows a girl named Gwen who lives like in this island. So there's people who live on the island and there's people who live like off the island, obviously. And she lives on the island, and this summer she wants to avoid this one boy at all costs. We don't know what happened, but we know that he's like her enemy or whatever. And then of course the boy gets a job on the island for the summer, so their paths keep crossing. Usually I am a sucker for books like that, but the main character Gwen I did not like. I didn't like any of the characters in this book. Anytime Gwen made any sort of decision, I was completely against it, and I just did not agree with like her morals and values at all. Also, there was a scene with cheating in here, and it was never explained. Like, they just kind of excused it, and we were like, oh, that's okay as long as they're happy, whatever. And the boy who got hurt because of the cheating, Gwen's dad was like, oh, just have a beer and take it like a man. You shouldn't cry over this. And her dad was just so offensive in everything he said, and I just couldn't stand anybody and any of the choices, and it was just not good. I was literally so upset after I read this. I posted a picture on Twitter where my face was just completely red because of how heated I was. But yes, I gave this one 1 out of 5 stars. I am not giving up on Huntley Fitzpatrick's books though, because like I said, I gave another one of hers 5 stars, so I will still read her books. This one I just would not recommend. The next book I read was Endlessly by Kiersten White, and this is to read a book with a non-human main character. This was the 3rd book in this series, and I have enjoyed reading this series so much. It follows this girl named Evie who works for this paranormal agency that captures like bad paranormal creatures and kind of protects the people of the world, and she is the only one that they know of that can see through all the paranormal glamours, so she's a really great asset. Like I said, this is the 3rd book, so I was really excited to wrap this one up. I do think that the ending was kind of rushed. Like, the big thing happened and then like a page and a half later the book was over, and I still had questions I wanted answered. I still had conversations I wanted to happen, but I thought this was a really enjoyable series. I love books about supernatural creatures, so if you have any recommendations, let me know. This series in particular was so much fun just because there were a lot of supernatural beings that I had never seen before in books. There were like vampires, werewolves, fairies, shapeshifters. There were even hags. There was a sylph, which is like a cloud type creature. It was really cool. They also had like nymphs and fossograms. Seriously, any creature you can imagine was in this series. So yes, I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Crimes of Grindelwald, the original screenplay by J.K. Rowling. This was for the challenge to read and watch a book-to-movie adaptation, so I also watched the movie. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars, of course. A lot of people don't understand why these were made. They think they were money grabbers, and okay, I can see that, but I am one of those people that loves reading screenplays. I love everything about the film industry, so getting to read a screenplay from a movie that I love is just so much fun. And also, the design of these books is so beautiful. Like, look at that cover, but then underneath it has the Eiffel Tower, but also each page in here is just so beautiful. And there's like pictures, see, like that. I loved it. Like I said, 5 out of 5 stars, and I will read these as long as they keep letting them out into the world. The next book I read for the Reading Rush was The First Time She Drowned by Carrie Clutter. This completed the challenge to read a book with 5 or more words in the title, and I really enjoyed this one. This follows a girl named Cassie who at the beginning of this book is in a mental institution, and she tells us that her parents wrongfully put her there and she didn't do what they're saying that she did. We don't know what they're saying, we don't know what happened, we just know that she is there against her will basically, and that she shouldn't be there. I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was going to absolutely break me, and at some points it did, but at the end of it, it was so hopeful, which is not something I was expecting from a book with this topic. I was expecting to be just sad and broken at the end of it, but at the end I was like crying happy tears, and I was just really hopeful, for lack of a better word. There is a trigger warning for depression, suicide, and sexual assault, so if that's something that you are triggered by, I would not recommend reading this right now, but overall I would really recommend it. I will say I gave it 4 out of 5 stars because all of the women in here, except for like 1 or 2, angered me so much, and they were just awful people, which is like to be expected because of the situations that are in this book, but I definitely recommend it. I really enjoyed it. 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was Obsidian by Jennifer L. Armentrout. It is book 1 in the Lux series. This is a bind-up, but I only read the first one, and it completed the challenge to read a book you meant to read last year because this has been on my TBR for 5 years. I was not expecting to love this as much as I did. I am completely obsessed with the series now and cannot wait to continue. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. This follows a girl named Katie who is a book blogger, and she moves into a new town, and of course her hot neighbor just happens to be an alien. I mean, of course, you know, but I felt a lot of similarities to Katie because, like I said, she's a book blogger, but she also moves to a town with 1 stoplight. The town I live in has 1 stoplight, and the high school she goes to is PHS, and the high school I went to was PHS. I really loved Katie as a character. I thought she was incredible and super sassy. I really loved and hated Damon all at the same time. He reminds me a lot of Damon from the Vampire Diaries, of course, where he says something and you're like, oh, I hate him so much, and then he does something and you're like, I love him so much, I would die for him. Yes, loved it. Cannot wait to see where this series goes, and it is such a quick read. Once again, 5 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was The Forest of Hands and Teeth by Carrie Ryan, and this completed the challenge to read an author's debut book. This book is a zombie book, which is not something I was expecting going into it. It takes place in this village, and there's a fence around the village, and outside of the fence is a forest called the Forest of Hands and Teeth, where the unconsecrated live. The unconsecrated are the zombies. One day, the fence is breached, chaos breaks out. You know how zombie things go. Unfortunately, I didn't care for this one as much because I didn't care for any of the characters. I thought the main character towards the end was pretty delusional, and I just didn't care for her, and I thought she was saying and doing all the wrong things. I also found myself kind of bored and wanting to be done with it, so I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars, but if you're looking for a zombie book, I would still recommend it. The last book I read for the reading rush was The Last True Love Story by Brendan Kiley, and I love this one. This follows a boy named Teddy whose grandfather is suffering with Alzheimer's, and all his grandfather wants to do is make it back home to Ithaca, New York. They currently live in California, and so one day Teddy is out with this girl who just wants to get away and leave town with no notice, and Teddy says, hey, you can use my mom's car if you take me and my grandpa to Ithaca, New York. So they proceed to go on this really fun road trip, which I did not know this was a road trip book. It was a lot of fun on the road trip, but it was also so much more about love, and it was just an incredible love story about all different kinds of love, and I really loved it, and I was crying and just tearing up at all of the parts that you should be crying at. But also, when I met Brendan Kiley a few years ago, he talked about how much this story meant to him and how it was about his own experience with his grandfather, and so that made it more special just reading this story, and I cried so much just because of the conversation I had with Brendan, and I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars. So those are all the books I read for the reading rush. Let me know if you participated and what your favorite book you read was. As always, my social media links will be down below, and I will see you next time. Bye!